FIFA spent years telling football fans that the future had arrived. More cameras, more technology, more accuracy, more transparency. The message was simple. The biggest tournament in the world would no longer be decided by mistakes that everyone could see except the officials. If there was an offside, technology would find it. If there was controversy, VAR would explain it. If there was doubt, the evidence would appear on screens around the world. That promise worked. Slowly, fans accepted that football was changing. They didn't always like the decisions, but at least they could see how those decisions were made. Then, just days into the World Cup, something happened that FIFA never wanted to happen. A controversial decision appeared on millions of television screens. Fans immediately began debating what they had seen, commentators questioned it, social media exploded, and then the one thing that was supposed to settle the argument never arrived. No graphic, no animation, no visual proof, nothing. In a tournament built around technology, the technology suddenly disappeared at the exact moment the world needed it most. That was the beginning of the problem, because football fans can accept a wrong decision. What they struggle to accept is being asked to trust a decision they cannot verify. And in that moment, a simple refereeing controversy started becoming something much bigger. Not a debate about offside, not a debate about VAR, a debate about trust. The incident itself wasn't supposed to become international news. It happened early in the tournament, a challenge inside the penalty area, a referee's decision, the sort of moment football sees every weekend. But replays immediately raised questions. Fans watching from the stands thought one thing, fans watching at home thought the same thing. Television analysts began slowing down the footage, frame by frame. The more people watched, the more convinced they became that something looked wrong. Yet, football in 2026 has an answer for moments like this. We've all seen it before. The freeze frame appears, colored lines are drawn across the pitch, the system explains the decision, debate ends, except this time, debate didn't end, the check happened, officials reviewed the incident, the decision stood, the goal counted, and then everyone waited. Broadcasters waited, supporters waited, analysts waited, the football world waited, but the graphic never appeared. Minutes passed, then hours. No explanation arrived, no evidence appeared. Suddenly the story was no longer the decision itself, the story became the missing proof. Because in modern football, transparency has become part of the decision-making process. Fans don't just expect officials to make calls, they expect officials to show their work. When that process breaks down, people start asking questions, and once those questions begin, controlling the narrative becomes almost impossible. What happened next was completely predictable. The internet filled the information vacuum before FIFA could. Within minutes, thousands of supporters were posting screenshots, drawing their own lines, creating their own explanations, and reaching their own conclusions. Some called it incompetence, others called it evidence of deeper problems. A few went even further. That assumption did not appear out of nowhere. It came from something FIFA had been struggling with long before this match ever kicked off. Credibility, trust, reputation. When an organization enjoys public trust, technical failures are usually treated as accidents. When trust is weak, technical failures become evidence. And that difference changes everything. Suddenly, every missing graphic looked suspicious. Every delay looked intentional. Every unanswered question became another reason for people to believe that something was being hidden. Whether that belief was fair or unfair almost didn't matter anymore. The perception had already taken hold, and once millions of fans begin questioning your credibility at the same time, the controversy becomes far bigger than the original incident. Normally, controversies like this remain confined to supporters arguing online. This one didn't. Very quickly, some of football's most recognizable voices entered the conversation. Former players, television analysts, commentators who have spent decades around the game. Their frustration wasn't focused entirely on the decision itself, it was focused on the missing transparency. Because the entire purpose of modern football technology is to remove uncertainty. If technology reaches a conclusion, fans expect to see how that conclusion was reached. That expectation has become part of the sport. Eventually, FIFA responded. The explanation was straightforward. According to officials, the review process itself had worked correctly, the decision had been checked, the technology had functioned. The problem, they said, was with the visual presentation shown to the public. In other words, the evidence existed, but the system responsible for displaying it failed. Under normal circumstances, that explanation might have been enough. And credibility is a fragile thing. Once people begin questioning it, every statement faces a higher standard. Every explanation feels incomplete. Every mistake becomes evidence of a larger problem. FIFA may have been explaining a technical failure. Much of the public heard something entirely different. They heard an organization asking for trust at the exact moment trust was becoming increasingly difficult to give. But then things got worse, because people started connecting the incident to a growing list of controversies that had already surrounded the tournament. Ticket prices, empty seat debates, travel controversies, border issues. One by one, they created the same impression. FIFA was constantly answering questions instead of controlling the narrative. None of these issues alone were enough to define a World Cup. Every major sporting event faces challenges, but together they created a pattern, a narrative, a feeling that the tournament's organizers were constantly reacting to problems instead of staying ahead of them. That is why the missing VAR graphic became so powerful on its own. It was a technical issue. Combined with everything else, it became a symbol of a tournament struggling to maintain public confidence. And suddenly, a single refereeing controversy began carrying the weight of every controversy that came before it. This is where the story stops being about football, because the real crisis facing FIFA is not a controversial decision. Football has survived controversial decisions for more than a century. The real crisis is trust. Trust determines how people interpret events. When trust is strong, mistakes are forgiven. When trust is weak, even honest errors can look suspicious. That is the position FIFA suddenly found itself in. FIFA may have been right, yet millions of people still walked away believing something was wrong. Why? Because trust changes perception. Once credibility begins to erode, facts alone struggle to repair the damage. Fans begin filling gaps with assumptions, critics become louder, explanations become less effective. The conversation shifts from what happened to why people believe it happened. And that is a much harder argument to win. What FIFA discovered during those opening days was that transparency is not simply about technology, it is about confidence. Confidence that people will believe what they are being shown. Confidence that organizations have earned the right to be trusted. Confidence that when something goes wrong, the public will assume the best rather than the worst. Maybe FIFA was right. Maybe the decision was correct. Maybe the missing graphic was nothing more than unfortunate timing and a technical problem that happened at exactly the wrong moment. That remains entirely possible. But that is not why this controversy matters. What makes this story important is what it revealed about the relationship between FIFA and the people watching its tournament. The biggest danger for FIFA is not a wrong decision. Every competition survives those. The biggest danger is a world that no longer automatically believes the right ones. Because once that happens, every future controversy becomes bigger. Every future explanation becomes harder. Every future mistake becomes more expensive. The irony is that the football itself has been delivering exactly what fans hoped for: drama, emotion, storylines, surprises, historic moments. Yet, once again, the conversation has drifted away from the players and back toward the people running the tournament, and that may be the most worrying sign of all. 3 days into the World Cup, the biggest story should have been football. Instead, it became credibility. A missing graphic lasted only moments. The questions it created could last much longer, and for FIFA, that is the real nightmare.